Hello, friends, and thank you for joining me for this live stream, whether you are here with me live or watching me on the replay. I appreciate that you are giving me some of your time and attention and focus. We are here today to talk about writing a book. Now, because I work with solopreneurs, and I would describe the solopreneurs as consultants, coaches, independent professionals, experts, and those who are running a service based business. You've probably heard this said, but something like 80% of people say they'd like to write a book, but actually only 3% of them do. Now, I recently interviewed Kim O'Hara, who is a Hollywood screenwriter turned book coach and published author, who told me a few things that I didn't really know that I want to share with you and also get you thinking about whether you, yes, you, should become a published author yourself. Or maybe it's something that's been on your bucket list for a while and it's actually time to take it off. So we're going to get into all that. I'm also going to talk about how I have been told for many, many years on a number of different occasions that I should write a book and why I still haven't. So let's get right to it. First of all, if you are an expert of any kind, you've probably heard it said that in these days and times, having a book is kind of like a billboard or a business card. And I have certainly heard the same said. What turns out to be true is just having a book, just having written a book, any kind of book, gives you a certain kind of cachet. Now, in reality, it needs to be a good book. It needs to be a worthwhile book. So if you're thinking, I'm just going to whip out a 47-page ebook and consider it a day, I'm going to call myself a published author and it's going to work, right? No, we both know better, right? Anybody that's promising you a quick fix, overnight success, or instant millions is probably benefiting from you believing that because they probably are selling you what they say is their guaranteed path to make it happen. Don't waste your money. Writing a book that's worth writing is writing a book that's worth reading. Now, if you think that having a book means you are suddenly going to have opportunities you don't have now without doing anything else, that's not going to happen. Will a published book help you accelerate what you're already doing? Excuse me, got an itch. Will it help you accelerate what you're already doing? Will it help you level up what you're already doing? And will it possibly help you do things like get interviews on more podcasts, get booked on more stages, or increase your speaking fees for the stages you're already on? Very likely it will. There's something kind of magical about being an author. Many people hold that in very high regard. The funny thing about it is that many people hold you being a published author in high regard, even if they're not a reader. Isn't that fascinating? Because it still seems like something kind of mysterious and also kind of makes you a celebrity, which is true. Now, if it's a crappy book, that's going to go away very quickly. But if it's a good book, if it's a worthwhile book, and if it's a book that is the first step to someone entering your world, your professional world, it may be worthwhile. How I've seen it work really well with some of the people I've worked with as a business coach and strategist is this way. Let's say you are a health coach. There are lots of them out there. And let's say the kind of health coach you are, you have created a very specific system, method, framework for helping a specific group of people to solve a specific problem they have. It would translate very well to a book because if what you already have is a 6-week coaching program, a 6-module masterclass, a 6-step digital course, you can teach a 6-hour workshop. You can run people through a 6-week training in a corporate setting. why wouldn't you turn it into a book? You've already done all the work. One of the things that I have come to appreciate is people who have distinguished themselves from their competition by creating a signature system, a signature framework. There are many people who have done this. Think about Mel Robbins and the 5 second rule. Think about Sally Hogshead and many, many others who have created a signature framework so that they're not just a communications consultant, they're not just a life coach or a motivational speaker. They are the person who created this system. Once you have created a signature system, it translates very, very well to a book. Now, I happen to be a speaker. I enjoy speaking because I'm a talker and because I know my subject matter very well. And it does not require a lot of preparation for me to just open up my mouth and talk like I'm doing right now. I have no notes for this. I know what I want to talk about. And so I talk. So, one of the reasons why I have not been able to squeeze a book out of me yet is because for me, it seems more challenging to sit down and write instead of just talk, which is why I have a podcast. And oh, by the way, if you don't know, my podcast is the Driven Woman Entrepreneur Podcast with Diane Wingert. It's also why I do these live streams, and it's why I do public speaking. And I am also a guest on other people's podcasts on a regular basis. It's easy for me, it's fun, and I'm using my natural communications gifts, speaking gifts. Now, could I write a book? Should I write a book? Will I write a book? This is not just about me, this is about you too. Because maybe you are a natural speaker, but sitting down at a keyboard, excruciating, tedious, boring, just can't even imagine it. You do know that there are ways to get a book out of you that do not require you to sit down at a keyboard. Oh, you didn't know? Oh, well, let me enlighten you. As I have thought about writing a book over the last few years, I have looked into the different ways I could do that. I will go through them with you. You could sit down and hammer it out yourself and hope for the best. I do not recommend that because unless you happen to be an accomplished writer and you understand how to edit and publish and market your book, you're going to get stuck at some point along the way. And then you won't have the outcome that you desired. So don't even start on that path unless you have those skills. You could work with a collaborative writer. One of my favorite clients, Emily Rapp Black, is a collaborative writer. So you can hire someone like Emily who will help you get your book out by writing it with you. There's also the done for you option of hiring a ghostwriter, where you give that person the information through whatever their process is, and they literally write the book on your behalf and it is published with your name on it. Now, clearly, this is the more expensive option, as it should be, because they're doing all the work. But you can also write a book by transcribing audio or video material that you already have. In the case of the health coach, if you have created training videos inside of your membership program, or you have recorded videos or audios inside of your digital program, you could transcribe those, have them edited, perhaps do a little bit of developmental writing, which is sort of making the pieces work together, and voila, you have a book. Chances are, if you are an expert, and chances are, if you are watching this live stream, you are either a coach, a consultant, an independent professional, a small service-based business owner, in other words, an expert of some sort. If you are already an expert and you know your subject matter well, chances are you already have created assets in your business in the form of blog posts, in the form of articles, in the form of chapters, um, audio files, video files that could be repurposed, and with some extra work and shaping made into a book. Now, you can't just take a bunch of blog posts, 500 word blog posts, or even 2,500 word blog posts, and slap them together and call it a book. That wouldn't be a book that anyone would be interested in reading, including you. But long form content that could be transcribed, then edited, then shaped, absolutely. So if having a book for you as an expert who wants to be more visible, who wants to create more credibility, and who wants to open some doors for yourself to speaking engagements and networking with other published authors, it is definitely worth looking into what kind of approach would work with you. When I interviewed Kim O'Hara for the Driven Woman Entrepreneur podcast, she talked about something else that I want to share today that I think is really interesting and very important. Because one of the things she asked me in the interview was basically, why haven't I written a book? I didn't even know this, but according to Kim, very few people are told by others, you should write a book. And I've heard that many times in my life. I've been through some traumatic stuff. And oftentimes it was a response to me talking about my childhood or some other horrific incident. And yet I realize in order for me to add published author to my credentials, it wouldn't just be a matter of making the commitment to doing it, although that would be necessary. It wouldn't be just a matter of carving out the time on my schedule to make it happen, although that would be necessary. It wouldn't be working with someone, either a book coach like Kim or in a group program. There are many of them, although that would probably be necessary. But Kim helped me realize that one of the most important things, actually, I'm going to say there's two important things that I haven't mentioned and I wouldn't have known without talking to Kim O'Hara. And that is this: the book that you will write is probably not the book that you think you need to write. That was a little surprising to me. Letting go of the book that you think you're supposed to write so that the book you actually need to write can emerge is probably something that needs to be facilitated by an expert like her. Because isn't it logical? If I think I'm supposed to write a book about, for example, some of the things that come to mind, I could write a book about how to be successfully self-employed as an adult with ADHD. I could write that book. How to overcome a difficult childhood to have a happy life. I could write that book. I could write a book about how to change careers with confidence. I could write a book about how to start over from scratch and rebuild your life. I've done that a few times. I could write that. I could also write how to cultivate an entrepreneurial mindset after you've left your academic, nonprofit, or corporate career. Those are just a couple of ideas, a handful of ideas that come to mind. I could write a book about starting a podcast, you name it. Are any of those titles the book I actually should write? Probably not. Probably not. But I won't know that. So if I did commit to writing the book that I think I'm supposed to write and actually start to write said book, am I going to figure it out on my own somewhere along the way? Like, oh, nope, this isn't it. This is not it. No, what'll probably happen is that I'll get stuck and I'll give up. And I won't even realize it's because I'm not writing the right book. Well, maybe I will. I'm pretty intuitive, but I doubt it. It probably needs to be a facilitated process, even if that facilitation is that you have an accountability partner who is also aiming to write and finish and publish their book. So is it worth it? It probably is. And maybe not for the reasons you think. Because the other thing that I learned from Kim is that In order to become a published author, your identity needs to transform. Just adding published author or best-selling author to your bio, of course, you actually have to have the book first, but I mean, you shouldn't fake that. But that doesn't indicate a transformation has taken place. The transformation that will take place is you will need to go from a person who wants to write a book to a person who commits to writing a book to a writer who is in the process of writing that book to a published author and perhaps a best-selling author. Those are several identity transformations that you cannot have access to without doing the work, which is to say, writing. A few of my clients have published books. I have had a number of published authors on the Driven Woman Entrepreneur podcast as my guests. And I've also worked with a couple of book coaches as clients. So I've had plenty of opportunities. I've also actually enrolled in 2 different group coaching programs for people who say they want to write a book. Didn't complete either one of them. So for me, that identity transformation hasn't happened yet. Will it happen? I do believe it will. Can I accelerate the likelihood that it'll happen? Can I throw some gasoline on it? Is there some action I can take? Well, I think it starts with a commitment, the commitment to becoming an author and to doing whatever it takes to fulfill that commitment. I have not yet made that commitment. I could give you all kinds of excuses, but if you are in this situation, I don't need to. You have your own. But I think the identity transformation, as well as the work that's involved, is not to be taken lightly. It's not something to check off on your to-do list or your bucket list. It's a big deal. I, I recently did a pod swap, my term for an interview exchange, with another female coach and speaker and podcaster, Nicole Khalil. And we talked about this. She recently published her book with a genius title, Validation is for Parking. She obviously speaks about confidence for female leaders. And she said it was absolutely grueling, one of the hardest things she's ever done. And she's done some hard things. So I think if you are in the position of making this decision, don't expect it to be easy, but expect it to be satisfying, because that's what Nicole told me. It's one of the hardest things I've ever done. I think she even said, if I had known how hard it was going to be, I'm not sure I would have done it. But I am so satisfied having done it. And it's only in the first couple of months since her book was published that we talked about it. I'm going to guess if I ask her again in a year how she feels about it, she'll probably say it was one of the smartest things I've ever done. So I think it's one of those things that if somebody's sold you on the idea, you need a book, you need a published book, I can help you write a best-selling book and it's going to 10x your success overnight. That's not true, and that won't happen. However, I've given you some suggestions. Some of them you've probably no doubt heard before, maybe all of them you've heard before, that could make it easier, faster, or simply more likely to happen. But ultimately, committing to the transformation and committing to the fact that writing a book is going to take you to places that you probably can't predict and that will help you grow. They will help you grow as a person, as a human being, as well as a professional. And when the time comes where I decide that's worth it, I will make that commitment. In the meantime, I'm giving myself grace. I'm giving myself permission. I'm I'm giving myself forgiveness for 2 false starts, and I'm trusting that I will know when the time is right and get the help I need to make it a fact. So if this is something that you're thinking about, what is it gonna take for you? If you are, like, right there, if you are right there and you know this is the year that you not only could write a book or should write a book, that you actually will write a book, I recommend Kim O'Hara. She's the real deal. She knows what she's doing. If you want to hear more about her and her process and the way she thinks and the way she works with people, check out episode 142 of the Driven Woman Entrepreneur podcast. You can also hear my interview with her on her podcast, which is aptly titled, You Should Write a Book About That. Thanks for joining me. We will be back next week to talk about what it's actually like to think about working with me. Yes, me. The part of the process that is the free consultation. Next week's episode of the podcast is what to expect during a free consultation. And then I'm going to follow up. That comes out on Tuesday. Then I'm going to come do a live stream on Friday where I'm going to talk about that, what I'm looking for when I do a free consultation, who is right for working with me and who isn't, and answering your questions if you're here live. Of course, I will also answer them if you post them in YouTube, on my Facebook business page, or in LinkedIn after the replay. Thanks for being here. Hope you have a great week. Bye for now.